And I guess maybe all of us could record such that if one person drops out, we don't lose the recording. Okay, so let me start my 5 minutes now. Okay, so we thank you guys for showing up. And so we are pretty much trying to talk about whether Africans should be Christians or atheists. And so I'm part of Apologetics Kenya. It's an organization that deals with issues to do with faith and skepticism in Africa, mostly in Kenya, and those are our sites. I guess I will share this sometime. But I wanted to start with this thing. So there are many people who think atheists are devil worshippers, and I think it's unfortunate. I think part of the reason they think that is because they don't dialogue with atheists. And so like I would personally want to tell such people that, no, these are not devil worshippers. In fact, they don't even believe the supernatural exists. And there are people who either hold that God does not exist or they lack a belief in God. Some would be secular humanists, some would not be. And so like in terms of the history of atheism in the continent, so as much as some people think it's an Western import, but now there's some information that seems to show that it goes back to several millennia, like in this quotation from Martin. And then there's also this book for Atheism for Dummies. And for those who know what Ubuntu is, it's this idea of community in Africa. And there are those who are trying to relate secular humanism with Ubuntu. And then also, so there are many people who are religious in Southern Africa, South Africa, Mozambique, Botswana, and also some information here about how people are becoming religious because they're tired of religious practice and how it's practiced. And so like, this is just like this is a slide on some of the famous religious people like Wole Soyinka, an author in Africa. And so in the African diaspora, that is Black people outside Africa, we find it's very strange. People don't really understand how you can be, let's say, Black or brown and not an atheist and not a believer. And so it's mostly a whites only club, but there are a few atheists there. So like a friend of mine who's the president of Apologetics Kenya wrote an article, and I just linked it here, and he talked about some of the key leaders who are influencing atheists here in Africa, like Dennett, Dawkins, and a couple of them. And so there's this idea of dichotomizing faith and science, that like there's this dichotomy, it's either faith or science. But Kevin Murray says that it is not really an intellectual issue, whether one becomes an atheist or Christian. So like, and he references Ephesians, where there's something about hardness of heart. And I believe maybe here Amani might disagree with me. But now he was talking about this hardness of heart that leads to this. But now there was this idea of Richard Dawkins talking about life is about blind, pitiless indifference. And so like, it seems atheism, if the African embraces it, he's going to get to a point, if he becomes logical, he thinks about it to its logical conclusion, he'll have to get to nihilism. And this is going to be difficult if the atheist still wants to affirm that there's objective wrong done by God or someone who is religious. So Kevin Murray talks about how scientism, caricatures of Christianity, like in the charismatic movement, and wanting to go back to your African roots is one of the reasons millennials are being interested in atheism. And so I wanted just to say that that whether you realize it or not, whether you've rationalized it or not, a worldview is a lens through which you view the world. And so like both the Christian and the atheist has a lens through which they view the world. So there's nothing like someone who is not biased. Everyone is. And so this, I will go through this quickly because I don't have much time left, just a minute. And so I sympathize with atheists because a lot are suffering in Africa. And there's this guy called Mubarak Bala in Nigeria who has been suffering because of his atheism. But now I want to talk about this slide where Frederick Douglass distinguishes between the Christianity of this land, referring to America, and I would also say Kenya, or Africa, differentiating it from the Christianity of Christ. And we can go into that in the cross-examination. So some things I want to talk about quickly is that Christianity has always been in the continent since it began. And we don't have to worry about this idea of a white savior because he wasn't even white to begin with. And then also the idea of people thinking Africa is cursed. There is no biblical record of the descendants of Cush being cursed. And so we see Africans are created in the image of God. And this was just to highlight like what the Bible is about, written over 1500 years with consistency, which should lend a bit of credence to why we should take it seriously. Obviously, I'm not going to get into all this, but these are some of the reasons why the African should be confident that they can be a Christian. I see my time is up, but I just want to go quickly. That the idea that that what has been created shows that there is a creator, and our conscience shows that there is a moral lawgiver. The fact that we can be able to survive in this hostile universe shows that there is fine-tuning of the universe, and then there's this ontological argument of if a maximally great being exists, then most likely exists. And so I'll probably go through this maybe later, maybe even in my rebuttal time, because it seems I prepared a very long presentation. So there are these misconceptions that atheists have. And so like maybe food for thought is when, I guess, when you're trying to consider what we are saying, ask like whose arguments are consistent with their position. And then maybe the last slide, sorry, I've taken too long. Suppose I could give evidence for God. Would you be prepared right now to repent and trust Christ? So that's what I leave you with. And I hand it over now to Amani. Let me stop share.
Yeah, Amani, over to you.
Yes. Hi, I'm Amani. I'm an atheist. I've been an atheist for about 5 years now. I took up this task and see how well I can do it. Let's see if I can debate Charles properly. So for at least this opening, I won't go into much detail. I think I'll only show you about 3 or 4 slides because it's gonna be as simple as possible. Okay, let's begin. So, as Voltaire says, if you wish to converse with me, you must first define your terms. So let's define our terms. 1 second. Okay. So here are the easy definitions. These ones I think we all agree on them. Subscribing is to accept a proposition as true. Christianity, I took a bit of a basic one for a reason I'll tell you later on. It's just an Abrahamic monotheistic religion based around Christ, or Jesus if you want to be technical. And truth, that which is concordant with reality. We might have some differences with Charles over this, but I think it should be simple to get over that. Here is where we go into the hard part. So first of all, let me compliment Charles because he gave us a really good definition of atheism. I really like it. I think it was simple. It's just the lack of belief in a deity or deities. Nothing less, nothing more. I have the Greek derivation here. It comes from atheos. A is for negating. Theos is for God or a deity. The words get mixed up. So among atheists, there are two main groups. There are Gnostic atheists and agnostic atheists. Gnostic atheists generally hold the position that there are no gods. They are making a claim. So you can say this claim is either true or false. And that puts them at a difference with agnostic atheists who don't know. They just don't know, so they don't say anything. If I to use an analogy, let's say I asked you, is it raining outside? You could say yes, you could say no, or you could say I don't know, or keep quiet. To say yes would be like the Christian. The Christian is making a proposition. It is in fact true that outside it is raining right now. However, and on the opposite side, there's the Gnostic atheist who says, no, it is definitely not raining outside. That is a fact about the world. Agnostic atheists don't say anything, so they can't be right and they can't be wrong. And we don't have anything to hold up, anything to propose or deny. We have nothing. We have no foundation, we have nothing. But we are not nihilists, because that's taking a step too far. We would like to know the answer, or at least most of us would. But we don't know yet, so we are going to keep quiet until we figure out the answer. So let me go back a bit and talk about atheists in general. Since it's just the lack of belief in a God, we don't have any distinction both Gnostic atheists and agnostic atheists fall under this camp, and we coexist. And since the definition doesn't talk about the reasons, we are not going to delve into that for now. Okay, so and this is the last part. You might have noticed there's a slight problem here. We can't subscribe to anything. You can't subscribe to atheism, whether you're an African or not. It doesn't matter. You can't. There's nothing to agree with, as you can see from the definition over here. You have to accept a proposition as true, but we have no propositions. We are saying nothing. We are silent. So we can't. So that leads us to conclude this topic has a huge problem, and the problem is that you can't subscribe to atheism. So we should pluck it out of the question. Go back here. We should pluck it out. We can't subscribe to atheism, but you can subscribe to Christianity. You can accept Christ as a deity. You can say that there exists a Trinity, or if you're a Unitarian, there exists a single God, or whatever. There are claims in Christianity that you can't subscribe to. But you can't do that for atheism. So we should pull out atheism from this and leave. Should the Africans subscribe to Christianity? Because you can't do that, because you can't ask the same question of atheism. That's my main point. I think I don't have much else to go into. I will play a trick on Charles and change the topic of the discussion. Thank you. I cede my time.
Wow, you just took the exact time. Okay, so we are now going to the next part of the session. The next part basically is now we're going to have a rebuttal by Charles. Then you're going to have another rebuttal by Amani, who looks to have already made a rebuttal. Then you're going to have a Q&A, which I really can't wait to get there. Okay, to you, Charles. Your 5 minutes starts now.
Oh, is it rebuttal or cross-examination?
Okay. Oh, sorry about that. It's cross-examination. You're going to cross-examine each other for the next 10 minutes, so you can ask each other questions. Starting with who? Charles. Charles, you can cross-examine Amani for 5 minutes. Then Amani can cross-examine you for 5 minutes.
Oh, and also, did we prevent others from joining? Because I don't see anyone joining. Or
okay, we might have. Okay. Yeah, maybe we can have people joining in, but through the waiting room, we'll be able to see the weird names.
Yeah.
We'll be able to see weird names.
Yeah,
and
I see someone there.
Cannot be yeah. That one cannot be admitted.
No, I know him.
Can go on.
Oh, I know.
You know him. Okay.
Okay. I don't know if I should be saying this and it's recorded. Anyway.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. What happens is you're all co-hosts. If you see somebody you know, just admit them, right?
Okay. All right. I guess let me start my cross-examination, 5 minutes. So it's only questions. All right. So Amani, thanks for joining us. And just wanted to ask, so which definition of atheism do you think most atheist scholars subscribe to, the Gnostic one or the agnostic one?
I will say the agnostic one, but I think I might have a bit of a bias because personally, I tend towards more philosophical people. So it might be an echo chamber where a lot of the people I see use that definition, but it's not true of everyone. But from what I can see, I would say most are agnostics.
And would you say like professional atheist philosophers like Graham Opie, I don't know if you've heard of that Australian philosopher, who's actually regarded as one of the best ones in the world. Would you know that he holds to the Gnostic one, which says that it is actually the belief that there is no God?
I'm not very familiar with his views, okay. but I don't think he does.
Oh, actually he does. In fact, I was actually reading him up like a couple of months ago. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to answer. I'm only supposed to ask questions, sorry. Oh, and so like, at least would you agree that the Gnostic atheists, those who say that they believe that there is no God, have a burden of proof and they have to explain why they believe there is no God?
Yes,
And also, just for the agnostic atheist who wants to say that they are not sure whether God exists and they are neutral, would you say that they still have to account for why the world is the way it is?
No, they don't. They can choose to, and you will see different ways of doing that. But I don't think there's any requirement that they do.
Okay. I might follow up after that. And also I wanted to ask, do you think that anyone can really be neutral?
Yes, I do. As I say, you can just not answer a question. And that's what neutrality is for this specific case.
So would you, I guess, deny the fact that every evidence, there is a lens through which you look at, regardless of what you believe? Like nobody is just looking at evidence. Everybody has a preconceived notion before it comes to the evidence.
I would argue no, but with regards to evidence, there are always preconceptions, and these alter what we think about. But I think there can be a way to look at it objectively.
And I wanted to ask, if God does not exist, how did molecules in motion, which I guess is what we are, become intelligent enough to understand the universe that is ultimately meaningless?
That's a hard question, but let me see if I can go. First of all, I don't know if God exists. I'm an agnostic atheist.
Okay.
But okay, and the other thing is, whether or not God exists, we are still molecules in motion. We just might have a soul on the side somewhere else. But what about intelligence? I think intelligence is an imagined property. When you combine molecules in specific configurations, you end up with intelligence. It's not something that has to be put in. It just appears once you have enough complexity.
Do we have any empirical evidence that molecules in motion can gain intelligence over time?
Yes, I would say yes.
What
the evidence I give?
Oh, sorry.
The evidence I give is conception itself. Those are just molecules. That's what they are, as far as we can tell. Since we're using empiricism, I can say empirically, what we can see is that they're just molecules in a specific configuration. And out of that, we get life, we get a new human.
Would you say that would be a false analogy because that is a living being giving rise to a living being, so that it's intelligence bringing forth intelligence?
I would say no, because while yes, both the sperm and the ovum would be alive, they are not intelligent.
Okay, I think my time is up in like 3 seconds, right, Kevin? Okay.
Yes,
so,
yes.
So I guess it's time for Amani to ask me questions.
Yep. Back to you.
Okay. So my first question would be, what would you consider the atheist worldview?
So the atheist worldview, and I guess I think Graham Opie would probably agree with me, and guys should look up Graham Opie, is the worldview that believes that no thing, or specifically no supernatural thing, is responsible for our reality, and that the universe and our reality is ultimately meaningless, and when we die, it won't even matter whether we existed or not. That's what I would say the atheist worldview is.
Okay, so according to you, the atheist worldview is necessarily materialist, as in it can't have space for souls and spirits.
I guess maybe, I know there are Buddhists who are atheists, and so like they have a supernatural component, but I guess maybe if I'm speaking to Amani, I would say that Amani is a materialist and believes only the material exists, unless I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. That's true. I just wanted clarification. Okay, and my next question, a bit hard. What are you an empiricist? Let me start simple. Are you an empiricist?
Okay, so I would say I am an empiricist to the extent that that means I believe that a universe was created by an intelligent being with purpose, and that's why we are able to do science and we are able to understand the universe. And that's why I am not surprised that the scientific endeavor was mostly from Europe, and even present day we have some very brilliant religious scientists. I hope I've answered.
Yeah, I've seen where you're coming from. Okay, so going along that route, do you think it's possible to have evidence that a God doesn't exist, or to at least falsify the claim that he does?
Yes.
Okay. How will this evidence look to you? Let's imagine it exists. What do you think it will be?
I think like Graham Opie from Australia has tried to discuss how naturalism, and I think we need to discuss naturalism at some point, but naturalism can be able to give account of why, for example, we have creation, conscience, and apparent design better than theism. So Graham Opie has tried to do that. And so like, I think one could be able to, for example, the Apostle Paul said, if you can show that Jesus did not rise from the dead, then our faith is in vain and our faith is useless. So I think those are the ways you can be able to do it. You can just show Jesus didn't rise from the dead and the Bible is not the word of God, so Christians should abandon their faith.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's my last question. I can give out the time that's remaining.
Okay.
Okay. So that is the cross-examination. Thanks so much. We've reached the end of the cross-examination session. So right now we are heading on to the rebuttals. So we're starting off with Charles, with any rebuttal that we may have for 5 minutes. Then it will go over to Amani right after you, just as such. So back to you, Charles.
Okay. So thanks for that cross-examination, Amani, and thanks for Kevin for being an awesome moderator. Even though you're a Christian, or not being unfair to Amani. But yeah, so I think it's interesting where we've gone so far. So like we've seen the definition of atheism, that there are some very brilliant scholars who believe that atheism is a belief that there is no God. I think it's, at least from my reading, it's mostly internet atheists, and this is not derogatory, but it's mostly internet atheists who talk about lack of a belief in God. But guys who study in Cambridge, they are trying to defend the fact that atheism is the belief that there is no God. And so, and also like, I want to counter this idea that you can be neutral, and the idea that we are not blank slates. Every one of us comes to evidence with a score to settle. It's just that sometimes we realize it and sometimes we don't. And so, and that's what I will say about that. I want to go to my slide a bit and just touch on some issues. So let me just share a bit, and it is related to what we've discussed. This is, I think, let me start from the top. I wanted to, first of all, deal with this part. And I guess I didn't get a chance to ask Amani, and I don't know if you would hold to the idea that, oh, you have to be either religious or a scientist. And I guess maybe I should have asked that. But I think maybe he agrees with me that, like with the sociologist Howard Eklund, who did this study, that more than 50% of 1,700 scientists in top universities are people of faith. And so at least, I think maybe that would not be a path of disagreement here. But I think the reason why I feel you cannot be neutral is because for an atheist, you have to believe that the universe has no ultimate purpose. Whether you lack belief in God or whether you believe that God does not exist, you have to believe that there's no ultimate purpose. But now it will be difficult for that same atheist, whether Gnostic or agnostic, to again come and say that there's this way that God should have acted. Because now the theist would have to come and tell them, by which standard do you say God should have acted this way? Or by which standard do you say Christians should act this way, if life is ultimately meaningless? So that's why I say even the person who lacks belief in God needs to account for why they start making some claims like God is evil because he commanded the Israelites to kill the Canaanites, something like that. I'm not saying Amani says that, but for those atheists who say that and lack belief in God, on what basis is God evil is the question that we would ask. I think also maybe hopefully in maybe the rebuttal or Q&A we can discuss more about the issues of why people, because I think it's important, like why people in Africa should become either atheists or Christians, whether they lack belief in God or they believe that God does not exist. And I hope people by now know the difference. I think also I wanted to emphasize this part. I guess we didn't touch on it in the cross-examination, but I think it's important. I think Frederick Douglass said this, just for anyone who might be having an issue. So he said, he is a former slave in the US who became free. He said, what I have said, respecting and against religion, I mean strictly to apply to the slave-holding religion of this land, and with no possible reference to Christianity proper, for between the Christianity of this land and the Christianity of Christ, I recognize the widest possible difference, so wide that to receive the one as good, pure and holy is of necessity, to reject the other as bad, corrupt, and wicked. To be the friend of the one is of necessity to be the enemy of the other. I love the pure, peaceable, and impartial Christianity of Christ. I therefore hate the corrupt, slave-holding, women-whipping, cradle-plundering, partial, and hypocritical Christianity of this land. Indeed, I can see no reason but the most deceitful one for calling the religion of this land Christianity. I look upon it as the climax of all misnomers, the boldest of all frauds, and the grossest of all labels. Never was there a clearer case of stealing the livery of the court of heaven to serve the devil in. I am filled with unutterable loathing when I contemplate the religious pomp and show, together with the horrible inconsistency which everywhere surround me. And I think my time is probably up. And unfortunately, we didn't even touch this issue, but I guess maybe it might not be important for this particular debate. But let me leave Amani to probably maybe make any rebuttals that he might want to make.
Yeah, so back to me. So where we left off before was, I decided to remove the atheism part of this question because I didn't see the point of it. And if you followed my argument, you saw that it wasn't necessary and it can't be logically possible even. So let's continue. Now that Charles can't talk about subscribing to atheism and the bad parts of that or the good parts of subscribing to atheism for that matter, we are left with can you subscribe to, should the African subscribe to Christianity? And I think there are two ways of arguing for that. Either he has to argue that it is true or that it is at least useful or more useful than all the others. And here I can't see a reason why he would, considering what has happened. So let's go to the first point. It's true. I wouldn't say Christianity is false. That's a heavy claim, and I don't think I can support it even if I try. But what I can say is that they are mostly dubious. They are supported by so little evidence that we shouldn't take them at face value, and we should at least hold them off for now. Let's put them aside. When we find more evidence, we can decide whether they are true or not. A good example of when this has happened is the claim that the universe had a beginning. For a long time, this was something held by Christians and other theists, while most atheist philosophers, I would say, held to the view that the universe is eternal in the past, is past eternal. But then this was shown to be wrong by advancements in physics in the last century. And once that happened, we took the claim that Christianity made, that the universe had a beginning, and we use it to date. Atheists argue about that too. We take it as true because it has evidence. Others don't have evidence, so we shouldn't take them, at least for now. Some of them we can show are false, and we should throw those away completely. And then while going into this, Charles is an empiricist, so this doesn't really concern me, but let me go through it either way. Some claims in Christianity are so bad that they can't even be termed true or false. They are functionally unprovable. You either take them or you don't. Those are the ones made by divine revelation. And some of these, like Trinitarianism, have some support in the Bible, but are on such shaky ground that you see a lot of people retreating to divine revelation, which you can't do anything with. Let's say you did get that vision. Let's say it was God. How will I be able to tell? How can I look at you and say, yes, you actually did this, or you actually didn't? I don't have any way. Nobody else has a way. And that means we can't differentiate between someone who actually saw the truth, was sent a vision, and someone who just woke up and decided that he's the new Messiah. So that's the problem. Faith can't get us anywhere. It can't tell us that this is right or this is wrong. It's just there. It doesn't help anyone. Okay, let's move on to the usefulness of Christianity. I'll only make two arguments. The case against Christian ethics, which falls under deontological ethics, the first point here, and the second against unity, the idea that Christianity unifies people. I will argue against those two cases only for now. I could make more, but I think this will be enough. Okay, so I will use a case study for this one to make it simpler. So in neighboring Uganda, there's a militia called the Lord's Resistance Army. If you can tell from the name, it's probably religious of some sort. But if I add that it came from the Holy Spirit movement, it's pretty explicitly Christian. We know. The current leader is Joseph Kony. He's a war criminal. He's wanted pretty much everywhere in the world. And him and his Lord's Resistance Army has been responsible for 6,000 deaths in Uganda, and about a similar number of abductions in Uganda, the DRC, and South Sudan. Here is what they're arguing for, so that it's not just me making the claim. Let us look at what the deputy commander, the second in line, what he says about the LRA. The Lord's Resistance Army is just the name of our movement. It is the name of the movement because we are fighting in the name of God. God is the one helping us in the bush. That's why we created this name, Lord's Resistance Army. And people ask us, are we fighting for the 10 Commandments of God? That is true, because the 10 Commandments of God is the constitution that God has given to the people of the world. This is explicitly Christian, or at least Judeo-Christian, to give him some good. I think my time is up, so I'll leave it there. I'll make the other argument later.
Okay, I was about to give you 2 more minutes from the one that you did not use the other time.
Oh, actually, give him actually. Yeah.
Can I add you 2 minutes?
Yeah.
You can use 2 minutes
sure.
from the one that you had not used. Yeah, please do. Go.
Okay. So let's move on. Back to that Christian ethics point. We can see them talking about the 10 Commandments of God. Yeah, they do agree with that. But then again, they still using these arguments, using the 10 Commandments, they still are allowed to murder and kill what they term non-Christians. Although it includes a large number of Christians, because Uganda is almost completely Christian, with a few Muslim enclaves. But let's go to Africa. Africans have their own philosophy. We have our own ethical systems, and they're just as good, if not better. And here is the best one, the Ubuntu Philosophy. I think Charles mentioned it before. It is a Ubuntu philosophy. It came out of South Africa specifically. And here is the core maxim: I am what I am because of who we all are. It's about community. It's about everyone being equal in that community. Of course, everyone has their own skills and differences, but everyone should be on an equal footing in that community. And if you take this maxim, you can see that it would be functionally impossible to claim that you are doing the right thing while murdering and abducting people. That simply would not work. Anyone who thought about it for 5 seconds would see that you are wrong. And it is so good that in fact Christians take it up. For example, the Reverend I believe it's the Anglican Church of Malawi, Reverend Father Thomas Msusa. It is a good philosophy. It works. It has strict definitions. So if you like that, you can use those strict definitions if you so wish. On to against unity. There are 3,300 ethnic groups in Africa. That's a lot. And they will always fight over different things. So what we should do is try to minimize these conflicts and make them as small in scope as possible. Now, let's look at something that a lot more people share, because 300 ethnic groups, it means that there are very few in each. But when you look at religion, there are vast numbers. 48% of Africans are Christian. 45% of Africans are Muslim. So we should see these communities being united, maybe even better than cross borders, because denominations don't work within the borders of a country. Let's look at a case here in Kenya, the 2007 post-election violence. Did we see that? Did we see Christians uniting? Did we see any group uniting? No. In fact, the worst violence was in the most Christian areas, like the Rift Valley, like Nyanza, where you would, if Christianity was truly unifying, you would see either no violence or violence along religious lines, such that Coast, which is predominantly Muslim, would become where you would see most of the violence, rather than in Rift Valley, Nyanza, and Central. Another case like this is Sudan. Sudan split into Sudan and South Sudan, and it's split along almost religious lines, as you can see here. There are many tribes inside there, but as you can see, the borders are almost drawn by religious leaders. But what do we see? Within the Christian state itself, it completely collapses. Nobody thinks about that when fighting. Everyone is thinking, am I Dinka? Am I Nuer? What am I? They don't think from the point of view of a Christian. So Christianity isn't helping us become more united. It isn't helping us form bonds with anyone else. And while other religions like Islam actually do that, you see things like the Maghreb, which is unified among African states, from Morocco to Algeria to Libya. They're all unified by that one name. Whereas you don't see that in Christianity. You don't see Christian nations of Africa. You don't see anything like that. There are independent churches. There are churches like the Catholic Church, which have a lot of Africans, but you don't see them unifying under that. And that is why I would say Africans shouldn't subscribe to Christianity, because it's not helping us in any meaningful way. So there's no point. Why waste the energy? Thank you.
Okay. We have Harrison Mumia on the waiting room, ready to support Amani. Charles, I think we can admit Harrison. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So right now we are heading on to, I think we're done with the rebuttals, right?
Yeah.
So we can head on to Q&A, right?
Yeah.
You have a Q&A. And so I disabled the chat for security purposes. So maybe I can allow people to unmute right now, right, Charles?
Yeah. In fact, I think people, because I know almost everyone here, so I trust that they will not spam us. Like, I guess someone can ask me a question verbally, or they can put it in the chat. I think
you have seen V is about to ask a question, so we can have it flowing around. You can also do the chat. I've already allowed that, and I think I've allowed participants to unmute themselves. You can raise your hand, then you can be unmuted. And okay, let me allow. Okay, let me do this. Yes, I think everyone is known. So V, you can start.
Excellent arguments from both sides. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah.
Yes, loud and clear. Loud and clear.
So I think for me, when it comes to this question, it is essential for us to take stock about what Christianity has done on the continent. So my question goes to Charles. With his knowledge of the history of Christianity and how it has been used and abused on the African continent, does he feel that the balance of the consequences have been positive or negative? Keeping in mind, the past 250 years. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I have like, let me make it one minute response. So like 1 minute response, and then Amani can comment for 30 seconds. That's right? Okay, yeah, I think that'd be good. Yeah, okay. So let me just tie myself. All right. So this is actually, it is sad what many people in the name of Christianity have done in the continent, like from the transatlantic slave trade to colonialism, where Africans have been made to feel like second-class human beings, if not human at all. And our heart goes out to those people who have been hurt by that. But the good thing is that we know the standard for Christianity is the Bible, whereby we see that one should love their neighbor as themselves. And the Good Samaritan story shows us that who is your neighbor? Pretty much everyone. And so with that said, I want people to remember that Christianity started 2,000 years ago here, whereby we have Africans who are influencing Europeans, like Augustine. Right now, European scholars are being influenced by Augustine. And we also have missionaries who are helping Africans by building hospitals. And we also have great kingdoms in Ethiopia because of Christian kings like King Ezana. So I think it's important for us to see that there's been a lot of positive influence because of Christianity. My time is up.
Amani?
Yes, I would say yes, there are.
Am I the only one who can't hear?
I can't hear Mani. I don't know if it is a connection issue.
I hope not. I hope you can come back.
Okay. Yeah. Mani. Having a connection issue, right?
I don't want to call him because I'm using my phone as my hotspot, so I'll also disappear.
Yep. Okay. Maybe you can share with me his number. I call him on the direct chat.
Okay, just a second. So guys, sorry for that. We will.
Yeah, I think he has dropped off the call. Okay, so as we wait on Charles and Amani to come back, for those who just joined in a bit late, we are having a debate between Charles and Amani. Charles was advocating for Christianity. The debate question was, should the African subscribe up of what has been shared so far? Is that Amani is of the thought and of the idea that atheism is not something to subscribe to. And for Charles is of the belief that you can subscribe to it. So I think Amani is back. I can see. Good. Spotlight Amani.
Oh, Amani is back. Okay, sorry.
Good. Good, you're back.
Sorry for that.
Okay, so you remember the question, huh?
But I think I was done. We can move on to the next question if they need.
Oh, we did. Did you hear the response?
We didn't hear your response.
Oh, sorry. I was saying the benefits that Christianity has brought, because it has brought some, and I think this is where we need to make a distinction. There are benefits that Christianity has brought. They're just not enough to continue subscribing to it. I don't think they're worth it. What the harm it has brought is much more than the good it has brought. And as I was saying before, Frederick Douglass called the Christianity of the slavers slaveholding, women weeping, cradle plundering, partial and hypocritical. And that is what was brought here. They didn't bring it. They didn't bring the same one they took to the Americas. And that's what Frederick Douglass knew as the Christianity of Christ.
Okay. Now, Amani, you can ask a question, or maybe you can get the other question.
Oh, another question from.
It's a Q&A session, so
oh yeah,
you can raise your hand and unmute. So as we get other questions, I think I can throw in a question into the gutters as we get questions from members who would want to ask. I have a question for Amani before I ask Charles, so that I'll be fair. Last question to both sides. Amani, you said that the topic is like moot, or maybe it's irrelevant because you can't subscribe to atheism. So my question for you is, if you say atheism isn't something to subscribe to, do you imply that it is a natural or a default state in every human being? And if it is a natural default state, why don't people manifest that default state rather than people calling themselves, like, for example, usually here atheists say that the ones who are enlightened, they're the ones who can see the light or something of that sort. So if it is a default state, for example, when I was born, I found myself I'm a male. Why can't I find myself like I'm an atheist naturally?
I don't know. This is a tough question, but let me see if I can answer it. So why? I think it is the default state because it's not, technically it's not even a state. It's just being there. As long as you're quiet, you are technically an atheist. So even this laptop I'm using can be said to be an atheist because it doesn't hold any beliefs. But why don't we see people holding on to that lack of belief? I think it's partially because of how aggressive the current religions are in proselytizing, especially Christianity and Islam, which are the biggest. We see a lot of them. We see them focusing especially on children, with Christianity beginning Sunday school at a very young age, Catholics baptize as soon as possible, even if the child in question will die before they reach the age of reason. They should be baptized according to their doctrine. So I think these things factor in, and there's the obvious biases that are inherent in being a human. I think these also play a huge part in how we do this, in how we manifest these things. Because things like pareidolia, the ability to see things and think of a pattern, it factors in. So I think to a certain degree, it is almost default that these biases will push us towards theism, or at least theism.
Okay, I'll take that for an answer for now, and just let's get to what I'm seeing something on the chat, what Kim Tyrone is saying. Charles, just a correction of historical fact. Ethiopia already had advanced civilized kingdoms before Christianity, about 5 or so millennia before Christianity, about the same time with the ancient Egyptian civilization. It's not the case that Ethiopia became a strong civilization because of Christianity. Any response to that, Charles?
Oh yeah, I would like to respond to that. So before I respond to that, I just want to say, I hope Africans here know that we've had Christians in Ethiopia for 2,000 years, from the Ethiopian eunuch, 1st century, to AD 400, King Ezana, and we have Lalibela, and the list goes on. And so I guess the argument wasn't that it's when Christianity came, that's when the advancement came. The argument is that Christianity has brought about a lot of wonder, in that there's such a unique aspect of Christianity amongst Ethiopians, such that they don't know anything but being Christians. So they don't have this baggage of white Jesus or something. And on top of that, we have a lot of architecture. Some of the greatest architecture in the continent is some of these churches built 1700 years ago, before we even knew missionaries existed. And so I think this is awesome stuff, and Christians should feel Christianity is their own. And we haven't even spoken about Coptic believers and North African believers 1700 years ago, who influenced guys like Thomas Aquinas, who came 1,000 years after St. Augustine, who was a North African. Oh, okay, I guess, I don't know if Amani wants to comment on that for 30 seconds.
Amani?
No, I think I think you're right. Christianity has existed for a long time. It would be wrong to say Christianity is a recent development in some parts of the continent, especially Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia. It's been there for a while. But I think there's also a strong case to be made that even if they're old, they were hurting people at that time. Because we can see the sites, and we can see that Christians plundered them, or at least desecrated them, these pagan sites, because of their beliefs, presumably, because we can see what they've done to the place. And it happens to be contemporary with when Christianity was introduced to the area.
Okay, Amani. This is nice. I know Theocentric is about to ask a question. I've seen his raise his hand, and I'm sure it is towards Amani. So before I allow Theocentric to ask a question, let me throw a question towards Charles. We have a lot of yes, Charles.
Oh, also before
Charles, you have something to say?
Oh, I just wanted to say I'm surprised Fadili and Harrison have not asked a question. I'm very surprised, but anyway, you can just continue asking.
Maybe they are asking.
And I just wanted to clarify something. If I can be given a chance, I can clarify. I think I joined late because I'm assuming you've been around for 1 hour now. So, but I had part of a conversation. I just want to clarify on atheism and just clarify that by definition, it is more of a position. It's not a belief system. It's not, atheism is really a position about the existence of gods. This is something which we really need to get straight so that when you're talking about atheism, you talk within the confines of the correct definition. I am not an atheist in the sense of I believe in I have a belief system or a set of values. I'm an atheist because I don't hold the position that the various gods proposed by various religions, especially most recently Islam and Christianity, which are the dominant religions of the day, exist. Remember, I'm a Luhya from Kakamega. We also had our own supernatural beliefs, which I reject as a Luhya also. And that still makes me an atheist about the Luhya gods. It applies to the Greek gods. It applies to the Hindu. Of course, there are some gods which have been made into sculptures. There are some who have been made into objects. Yeah, those ones are just symbolisms of God. So some of these definitions are important as you navigate these kind of conversations. I don't know, the topic was about whether Christianity or atheism should be the dominant religion. I think that's what I saw on Twitter. So I think to me that's neither here nor there. What we look forward to is a world where there is what we call human thriving. For me, whether we are not trying to make Kenya, for example, as atheists in Kenya society, we don't want to make Kenya an atheist society, no. We want, I would say the aspirations of all Kenyans are in our constitution, especially if you look at the article on human rights and fundamental freedoms. That's a very important article for all Kenyans, irrespective of what you believe. So Kenya should be, and Africa should, embrace things like democracy, fundamental freedoms, eradication of poverty, knowledge and advancement, things like research, things which are going to make our lives, all of us, better. Things like education for all and universal health care. These are things which we all care for. So the question of whether we should have an atheist country, an atheist continent, a Christian continent, really for me is neither here nor there. What we are just saying is that as human beings, you'll find that we don't agree with some of the propositions that have been made in the religious circles, yeah? So we don't agree with the fact that there is a God. We don't agree with the fact that there is a supernatural realm, or there's a heaven, or there is sin, or there is hell. And that is why we then define ourselves as atheists, and we advance a different agenda opposed to what actually currently is a dominant notion, which is very mistaken, that there is a God and he cares for us.
Oh,
so I just wanted to make those few remarks, and I think that should be it.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I thought your question had gone quite long, and I think there are also others who want to ask questions, and we also have a closing.
No, I'm done.
But thanks. But thanks for that. I'm assuming I'm the one who's responding. Huh? So let me respond in 1 minute so that I don't take too much time. I think we would also agree, and many of my friends in Apologetics Kenya would agree. The issue is not to, well, I guess we would, let's be honest, we would want more Christians in the country. And I guess probably what we would also distinguish is the fact that we would disagree that even Kenya is mostly Christian, because the Christianity that is described in the Bible is not really what Kenyans practice for the most part, but that's another debate for another day. But I think we would agree that we are not trying to say Kenya should be a Christian or atheist nation. But on the issue of the definition of atheism, so I think that's where you missed. That was in the beginning of the debate. And I had quoted Graham Oppy, Graham Oppy. He's an atheist philosopher from Australia. And he's actually one of the best known atheist philosophers. And he says that the belief that God does not exist is the best scholarly definition of atheism. But let me leave it there. And I think Amani would like to comment.
Amani?
I don't think I have much to say. I agree that, yeah, on a fundamental level, I don't really care if you're an atheist or not. I'm just arguing for the proposition that if, assuming that I would want you to be either an atheist or a Christian, this is what my position would be. But for day-to-day life, I don't really care if you're a Christian, an atheist, whatever. As long as you respect freedom of religion, we are good.
Okay. Just a question, just a follow-up question from what Harrison and what Charles and Amani just said on this topic of definition. I'll start with a question towards Charles. We have several religions all over the world, and already, as Harrison said, Islam and Christianity are the most dominant. So according to you, what makes Christianity the so-called true religion? What makes it, like, what can you say, like, why are you not Islam? Why are you not Buddhist? Why are you not whatever kind of religion that ascribes that there is a supernatural, there's a God or a creator out there? Then for Amani, so you'll answer, then Amani will answer this. Amani, you started by telling us there is gnostic and agnostic atheists, which is the correct position, because according to what Harrison has said, I think he's in one position of atheism, and you are in another position. So which is the correct one? Yeah.
Okay. And,
Charles?
okay, so I'll have 1 minute, and then Amani can respond in 30 seconds. Okay, so the reason why we should be Christians, first of all, this gives me a chance to declare the gospel, because God, who knew no sin, became sin for us in the form of a man, so that we might become the righteousness of God. So this assurance of salvation is not found in any religion. In other religions, it's more about we'll try harder. But secondly, with Christianity, we can actually boast of the fact that one of the people who defended the Trinity was an African called Athanasius. That is 1600 years ago. And then number three, we can say there's a guy called Augustine who has influenced Europeans to come up with a lot of awesome literature. So that's number four. But also number three. But number four, to finish up, we have creation, we have design, we have conscience, showing that there's this creator, designer, and moral lawgiver. And it's only Jesus who is able to give us this perfection and assurance that we have. Because even if you go to religions like Islam, even Muhammad was not sure of going to heaven. So I guess maybe Amani could comment. 30 minutes.
Okay.
Amani?
The question of Gnosticism versus agnosticism. I would say agnosticism is the correct position because because Gnosticism is not really tenable. It doesn't have as much evidence. I think it's on par with Christianity with how much evidence it has. Maybe slightly more, but I would say it's not a tenable position. So agnosticism would be the quote unquote correct position.
Oh, and also, I guess, Amani, you didn't comment on my response on why we should subscribe to Christianity as opposed to the other religions. Or did you want to comment?
No, I agreed with most of what you said, so I didn't see the need.
Okay. I guess I could comment.
Okay, yeah, you can.
I could comment on his response. So like, I guess maybe what I could do is probably, I think it is the Stanford definition of atheism, Stanford and Cambridge, which say that atheism is the belief that there are no gods. I could be wrong, but it was one of those major universities. And so that's why I keep with that definition, because I guess I assume we all believe like Cambridge and Stanford, they don't play around with their philosophy. So like their definitions are belief that there is no God. So that's why I stick with that, but I just leave it there.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I don't know whether Harrison, you agree with that. The fact that Amania said that his position is the correct one, rather than the blatant rejection of any goods as you ascribe.
This maybe is not
anybody to understand, to really appreciate what it is, what atheism is. I'm not interested in who said what. I'm just telling you what I mean. Atheism, you become an atheist through the realization. It is really that realization that there is nothing beyond the makes you an atheist. So it then becomes a position. It is not a belief system. It is not any of those definitions. It is the position. So we are surrounded by various belief systems. Just like saying I don't believe in those things don't matter to you, they don't exist. That is what atheism is. But I mean, many atheists, I appreciate also many atheists always support them. So I'm just talking from my own experience. Yeah.
Okay.
What is your take on those who say when they are silent, they are atheists? When they are silent,
when they're silent about what? What do you mean by that?
When you know, there are people say like I'm an atheist because they haven't taken a position. I'm silent about the matter of gods. Are they atheists according to you?
No. But now there are others who don't want to take a strong position on that. Normally they fall in the category of agnostics. In between, they don't want to accept or deny, so those are agnostics.
I see theocentric. Finish up with theocentric. So theocentric can ask your question, then you can get to the closing session. Theo, you can answer.
Mic testing 1 2. Okay, my question is actually to Charles. Yeah, so Charles, when you say that Africans should be Christians, that they should embrace Christianity, which Christianity are you talking about? Because as far as the debate is concerned, you've presented this pseudo-unity, that there is this pseudo-unity that exists within Christianity, that once you're a Christian, if you go to this place and say that I'm a Christian, this is my beliefs, you'll be everybody will accept that you're a Christian. So this false unity that you created sort of misleading. So again, just to clarify on the position that you are presenting on, when you say Africans should be Christians, what sort of Christianity are you talking about?
Okay, yeah, thanks for the question, Theocentric. The Theocentric is a friend of mine. So the Christianity I'm talking about is the Christianity that had the forerunner of prophets who were prophesying that a Messiah was coming, the one that had a prophet like Isaiah saying, "Mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." And then with the culmination of the one where Jesus says, "I baptize you, go and baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit." And then the one that the Apostle Paul in Acts 26 says, "I wish that all of you are Christians, except for these chains," which is actually my same desire for all of you guys. So that Christianity that the prophets, apostles, and Jesus believed, that's the one I'm talking about. And then on top of that, I think I gave the reason that I gave why Christianity also now, that Christianity is true. We can look at internal witness of the Bible and also corroboration of the Bible with things like the Cyrus cylinder and things like, secular historians talking about things in the Bible and things of that sort. I think I just leave it there, and Amani could, I guess, comment maybe.
Amani can comment, then we get closing.
Could you repeat the question? I got a bit confused.
I think it was more of
just
like
a comment on what Charles has just said.
And also I think on like whether
and what Theocentric has asked.
Yeah.
I think I'll reserve my remarks because that's a point I wanted to hit on during the closing remarks anyway.
Okay. So I think we can get to the closing session. So each member, each party, each side will have 5 minutes to make a closing statement. And for fairness, you've said the closing session is going to be finished with Amani, and the person to start is Charles. So over to you, Charles, without wasting any more time.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us. I just want to emphasize that, as you can see, we were not dissing one another here like we normally do in Facebook and WhatsApp and Twitter, calling atheists devil worshippers and Christians dumb people. Hopefully we've been able to show that we can actually have rational conversations. So just to go to the main points quickly, I think I showed that there are very well-known atheist philosophers who believe that atheism is a belief that there is no God. So it's a tenable definition. I was also able to show that even the atheist who lacks belief in God and wants to say they have no position, they still have to explain why there is something rather than nothing, why rational beings exist that live meaningfully in an ultimately meaningless universe. And so like the atheist has to account for that, whether they lack belief in God or believe God does not exist. And so with the issue of Christianity being false, I just want to see how atheism, lack of a belief in God, since that's Amani's position, could explain why we have the universe, how we could explain why we have like design in something like bacterial flagellum or ATP synthase, which almost looks like a factory or a motor, and on nanoscale, how we could explain conscience, and by not even consciousness, but conscience in the sense of this immaterial thing telling us what to do or not to do, and then how you can also explain the fact that there was this belief that had no chance of getting off the ground, and all of a sudden these incompetent disciples got off the ground and started believing something that they were not going to believe anyway, and they were able to influence people, despite the fact that they stopped believing in Jesus when he died. And then on top of that, we have like secular historians like Thales, who seems to be giving a reference to the eclipse in the Bible. And then we also have people like, at least Pliny, at least kind of mentions there was a person who was crucified. So we have all this data. So if we lack belief in God, how do we explain this data? So that would be my question. And then there was this issue of visions, which I would like to refer you guys to Craig Keener, because he does a better job in a book called Case for Miracles. He does a better job of explaining how miracles have been there throughout history and also present day. And then we also have this idea of the Lord Resistance Army. So first of all, no Christian on the planet would even say the Lord Resistance Army was Christian by any shape or form, even the most heretical Christians. But secondly, if what the Lord Resistance Army does is wrong, we would ask by what standard? If we are just molecules in motion that have no purpose, and when we die, it won't even matter whether the Lord Resistance Army was there or not. On what basis are they wrong or right? So that's the question I would ask. And then, and also the opposite is also true. On what basis is Ubuntu good? Because we are just, like, remember, we are no different from Mandazi. Mandazi is also meaningless molecules in motion. And if you lack belief in God, you'd have to explain how are we different from Mandazi? Where did the difference come in? Christianity can explain that, but I would assert that both the person who lacks belief in God and the person who believes that there is no God cannot explain what the difference is between us and Mandazi, or a piece of cake, or the dust we walk around every day. So on the issue of post-election violence, I just wanted to comment, despite the fact that the atheist has no grounding for morality, but that's a discussion for another day, but we would say that Kenya is not really a greater percentage Christian, because obviously the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control. That's not what we see with most Christians. I think we've been lied to that we are mostly Christian, and we just took it on board. But on the ground, when we look at things, as we usually say in Kenya, ulisikia wapi, we will see that the fruit of the Spirit is not displayed in most people who claim to be Christian. So I would contend that. And then I think I gave some arguments. I hope I would like to hear Amani's position on the Kalam, the ontological fine-tuning. And I know it's too little time to deal with that, but maybe you can just touch on them. We could have a follow-up debate sometime. But now I'd just like to end by saying, if we don't embrace Christianity, we are left with absurdity. We cannot account for why we have this creation, design, conscience, and the historical facts of the resurrection. And at the same time, without Christianity, we wouldn't have guys like Augustine, guys like Athanasius, ladies like Perpetua, who really helped the continent quite a bit. And so, and also just the awesome history of Christianity in Ethiopia. And we have Ethiopia being the only one that was not colonized. So I think we have very good reasons to become Christians as opposed to atheists. But I'm thankful for Amani for being very patient with me and all of you all. And I guess we will talk later. Or I guess maybe I ended there, and I guess off to Amani. Thanks for your time.
Amani.
Okay. Thanks. Let me go point by point because I have quite a bit to get through. Okay, so first, let me go through what the eccentric had said. He was talking about Christian pseudo-unity. The idea that Charles is presenting a case where Christians are a solid block, where they are not really a solid block. I actually had some statistics on this. I might share my screen, though it's only for a sentence or two, so I don't see the need. But basically, there are about 30,000 Christian groupings. Most of these are in Africa. Most of these are African independent churches, which are just based on Protestantism primarily. So they're not really denominations. They're more of just guys who don't want to work together. These groups have varying beliefs, and that's the problem. Even when you're arguing against Christianity, you have to paint such a wide target before you actually get anything. And that's gonna hurt us, because as I even showed before, the Lord's Resistance Army is killing other people, other Christians, because they're not the right kind of Christians. So what is a right kind of Christian? All of them say they read the Bible, some interpret it differently. Like, I believe it's Jehovah's Witnesses who don't allow blood transfusion. That's killing people. You get into an accident, you go to a hospital, and you refuse blood because the Bible says so, allegedly. But at the same time, the Pope is saying, yeah, that's good. Take it, try to stay alive. So why is there this moving target? Why does everyone decide what's different? How can we have a proper definition without asking the guy himself? So that's gonna give us a real problem. what do we mean by Christianity? It's such a vague term. Second, on whether there is something or nothing, I personally, I don't hold a position here. I'm an agnostic on a million things. Here, I think it's possible that there was something before, or there was nothing. I don't know. But what I would say is that we don't have evidence to say that it was a God. And even if we can't show that there was nothing, then something, then there can't be a God. Because then how was there nothing with a God? That's something. So it would break down even if we assumed there was nothing and then something. Onto how lack of belief explains. I believe you mentioned the beginning of the universe, abiogenesis, and the development of consciousness. They don't. Saying atheism is a lack of belief doesn't make any statement about the state of the world. It just makes a statement about what I think, what's in my head, and that, generally speaking, doesn't have an effect on what the world is. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm not. Actually, no, I can't be right and I can't be wrong because I haven't said anything. So there's no way for lack of belief to explain anything, literally anything. Those are explained by other methods, and atheists can hold other beliefs. You can be an atheist and a spiritualist and believe the spirits are the ones which caused the universe to start. That there are souls in humans. That's how we developed consciousness. You can have these other beliefs. Atheism specifically talks about the belief in a deity. Anything else is outside atheism, and you can hold whatever position you want. I have talked to a few who have beliefs I'd call crazy, but they're atheists and they're atheists with other weird beliefs. Okay, on to the spread of Christianity. I think Christianity spread because of how it works. Judaism, which was Christianity, was a branch of Judaism, and for a while, for about 40 or so years, it worked like that. They worshipped in the synagogue together, they prayed together, they read the same scriptures, all that. But then came the Great Jewish Revolt, and that broke down. And here is where the difference began. Judaism doesn't proselytize. You are born a Jew, you remain a Jew. But for Christianity, they actively look for new members. So they have growth outside of just giving birth. There are two ways to make a Christian. You can either talk one into being one, or you can give birth to a child and make that one a Christian. Whereas Judaism, if you don't have kids, that's it. There's no more. It's gonna die out. So I think that contributed a lot to how it spread and how it grew. And then of course Constantine came a bit later, and Theophilus, who mandated Christianity as the state religion of the Roman Empire. And considering the scope and scale of the Roman Empire, it would have forced a lot of people to become Christian, or at least act like Christians, in order to fit in and maintain their positions. So I think these things factor into how Christianity grew. Onto the evidence. Yes, we have very old accounts, guys like Pliny, we have guys like Tacitus, we have guys like Suetonius. Yes, they exist. But the problem is they don't tell us what happened. They tell us what Christians say is happening. So what we can say is that Christians believed in the crucifixion at this time, just listening to reports from Christians, especially Pliny, because Pliny is talking about a case of whether to punish a Christian or not if he decides to revoke, if he decides to blaspheme. Let me go now on to a huge topic. I think this is where I'll actually end. You are talking about humans being molecules in motion. Yeah, that's what we are, or at least that's what I think we are, because I'm a materialist. That's not the same as being an atheist, and those are different. But yeah, we are just molecules in motion. We are conscious molecules in motion. And being conscious, we have the ability to say, I like that set of molecules, which happens to be Charles. So I will not kill Charles. It's you to decide, hey, I like this person, or I want to survive. So let me be friends with this guy who is very strong, so that if there ever is a fight or anything, I have someone on my side, I will survive. So these things factor in. Or like even growing food. Let's say I keep cattle. I will I will be producing milk. There will be a lot of milk. But I won't be able to get things like carbohydrates because milk is just protein. So I will have to go and talk to someone who farms or gathers fruits from the forest. And through that, you build a connection, you become friends with this guy, you end up probably living in the same place. And then connections grow, and once you get kids, they will be familiar with these people and it will keep growing. Then you form communities. And once you form communities, everyone has to have a position. Everyone has to have a position relative to everyone else. I am friends with this guy and this guy and this guy. I don't like this guy and this guy and this guy. And that means we have to have some value attached. That value is what now, and that value is the problem. Christians say it's inherent because you have a soul or whatever. It is inherent that you will value another person. But we don't see that. The statistics from, I believe, from Boston, this was the DA talking a while back. She said that most murders aren't murders because of convenience or like, this guy saw me commit a crime, let me kill him. They are actually capital punishments. It's this guy saying, I have invested myself with the power to pass a death sentence over you and I will carry it out. How does Christian ethics help there? It doesn't. It doesn't, because this guy in his head, he's doing the right thing. He's doing the moral thing. You broke a law, you broke the law, I decided, and I will kill you for it. That is the punishment. So that's where the problem comes in. And then, okay, the Kalam and the ontological, specifically with the Kalam, I don't think it helps Christians a lot. I think it doesn't really help any religion that has a majority anywhere right now. Because it just gets you to deism at its strongest, gets you to being a deist, and from deism to religion, as Hitchen said, it is probably even harder than from atheism.
Oh, did he step out?
I think Amani has dropped off the call, if I'm not wrong.
Okay, I think Safaricom is not working very well.
Yeah, I think he was on his closing statements. I don't know whether he's going to be coming back, but yeah. I think he should be.
I guess maybe when he joins, he can just finish up in like 1 minute, because I think he went beyond the 5. Huh?
Yeah, he was actually at 7.
Okay. Oops. Oh man, he's dropped off.
Yeah, but I think he's dropping off to join in again.
Okay. All right.
So maybe we can thank the members for coming in, and as we wait on him, Charles, we can do that.
Yeah, I guess thanks guys. I think there are people who've just joined. Thanks for joining. Let Amani finish. I guess maybe Amani, sorry you dropped off. Maybe you can just finish off maybe in the next minute as we close the meeting.
Yeah, I have nothing much to say. I guess thanks guys for coming. It was really nice. The audience is actually bigger than I expected, but it's manageable. Thanks for your time. And thanks Charles, and thanks Kevin. You guys set up everything. To be honest, I'm lazy. I didn't do any of this. We'll give these guys, buy these guys something.
Yeah, we'll just be giving our M-Pesa numbers in the chat.
I'd be scared to do that because of the family. I think we can stop the recording, right?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Okay, done. So I'll